doesn't feel good to go 3 and out, especially to start the game. So that was definitely frustrating, but obviously put it on myself. You continue to be better, make sure the guys around me are ready to go. I'm ready to go. It starts with me. So I put that on myself.
Now, back to Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.
I'm already just like, I can't listen to Trey Lance talk without feeling sympathy. I hate the questions that he needs to answer. I hate the word that we all use now, the narrative that is surrounding him. I'm not feeling sorry for him. He's a big boy. He's an adult. He's getting paid a whole lot of money, and he's going to be fine. But everything is just so, I'm not even saying it shouldn't be, but it's so probing and poking, and he is not able to do what everybody thought he'd be able to do. That's just the way I look at it.
And he's under the microscope, and it doesn't mean that he can't go on to have a nice career.
Sure.
There is still, I think, as crazy as it sounds, a pathway to him being a good, capable quarterback for the 49ers. It's not a pathway that I think any 49er fan would want to go through to get to. But, and I'm also not writing off his career, because the reality is he needs time, and he needs, in all likelihood, the ability to play without the expectation of success or team wins. And that's just something that the 49ers cannot afford him. And they have at least one, maybe two, maybe even three different options on their roster that may give them a greater opportunity at having that.
I think that's a good way to put it, which is I'm not writing off Trey Lance. I'm not writing off Trey Lance's career. I'm writing off Trey Lance's right now. And that's all we got, right? That's really all. I mean, it's
I may not even be doing that.
Well, but, I am.
Yeah, you are.
Trey Lance cannot play quarterback as a starter for an NFL team right now. I'm going with that. That's where I am today. It's Monday. It's Monday the 14th. Okay? That's where I am right now. So that has nothing to do with his future, whichever team he plays for, him as a person, none of that. But if you saw anything yesterday, if you've seen anything at any point in a real game with Trey Lance that makes you comfortable with him starting games for a Super Bowl contender, please raise your hand and tell me when it was and what it was. I've not seen it. So because the 49ers have such a good roster, it means all we have is right now. And then I could get all Deepak on you and be like, that's always all we've got is right now. This is the NFL. I'm not worried about what's going on in 2025.
Right.
I have no clue what the hell's going on there. Kyle doesn't even know if we're going to be alive. Speaking of Kyle, he's speaking right now in a conference call. So we will have fresh Kyle Shanahan for you very shortly. Comments a day later. Should be interesting.
Look, if this was 2018 and the 49ers had just drafted Trey Lance and it was the second year of the Kyle Shanahan era and they had just come off a 6-10 year, I know they got Garoppolo and he won 5. Forget about if this was just the early phase of, the guy had a year of injury and now he's coming back or whatever, like, you'd be like, all right, let him play. We'll see what happens. But you'd also be cool with them going 6-11 if that's what it ultimately led to. That's not the case, which is a nice situation to be in if you're the 49ers, but it just changes the way you evaluate this whole thing. Like Trey, it isn't a question anymore, and I said this earlier, about Trey's development and his long-term success. It may get to that point. It's more about who can help be the backup. Who's the backup quarterback right now? That's what's in play. It's who's the backup quarterback between Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. And right now, Sam Darnold has the edge with a couple of weeks to go here, 3.5 weeks, really 2.5 weeks, because the 49ers are going to play this Saturday, and they're going to play next Friday. And then everything is geared toward Pittsburgh in week 1. So the competition really has got 2 weeks left.
By the way, fun fact, fun thing you can do this Saturday when the 49ers play the Broncos. You can watch a quarterback situation where there's a bad quarterback, and it actually is really going to mess with the team. His name is Russell Wilson. That's what happens when you're getting horrific quarterback play based on your assessments, but you're doing it for $250 million. So this could be worse. But here's the thing, man. We got to put this out there also. You want to know what the biggest head scratcher is of all of this?
What's that?
The biggest head scratcher of the whole experience. He can't run.
Yeah.
He's not that fast.
Yeah.
He's not that dynamic in terms of escapability, which is like what we were all kind of salivating over. We wanted to see someone who was dynamic, both with his arm and his legs, and had that Patrick Mahomes kind of ad-lib ability. He can't move well within the pocket and escape people who are twice his size. And if there's one way where you want to look at the 49ers and go, what were you actually assessing come draft time? How did they not do a good job of that?
That is the area where you can say they really misevaluated and or whiffed. You can say the rest of it as far as having him be a passer is developmental, but you thought Trey Lance had the escapability and the ability to move, and he hasn't had it. And you even saw last year when they're running off tackle plays, they're running inside running plays for him as opposed to outside running plays.
They thought he was going to dart through the line when there was a hole. And he doesn't get through the hole.
But he also can't, they weren't running outside running plays because he can't turn the corner.
Yeah.
So, that, when that was the first time where I'm like, what is going on?
What the hell, right?
Exactly. That was the first time. What the hell? Because the whole thought process was, his ability to run is going to make it easier for him to pass more quickly. Right? The threat of him running is going to allow for them to run an offense that will allow him to function and allow this team to still win. I'm going back to last year at the beginning a little bit. I'm going back to even if he had to play 2 years ago after Jimmy was named the starter. That, to me, remember they tried the Trey package?
Yeah, oh, God.
Early.
Yes.
And Kyle hated it and completely went away from it. So those were the early signs where I'm thinking, whoa. The one thing I will say though now, they are forcing him to run the regular offense now, which I think is a good thing.
It is a good thing
because he is more of a pocket pat.
He's going to have to be.
Let's stop trying to make him something he's not, which is a running quarterback.
I agree with you completely. I think that's a really good point and something that fans need to understand that the game plan, the playbook, if you will. Trey has now got to run what the 49ers would like to run, what Brock Purdy's running, what Sam Darnold's running. It's the same thing now. And the early returns are no bueno. 888-957-9570. We'll go to the phones in just a sec. But I want to go to the First NorCal Credit Union YouTube chat for a second, just because there's one other thing I hear a lot. I would personally like to dispel it, just my opinion, okay? Kenny Anderson. Not the former basketball player or the former Bengals quarterback.
Okay.
At least maybe not. But just Kenny Anderson on our YouTube chat. Hey, Kenny, thank you very much for listening. He writes, it's hard to run 1 year after a shattered ankle. Okay. Just my opinion. I've never shattered my ankle. But based on just watching sports and talking to athletes and doctors and everything that we do here through the years, no, it's not. No, it's not. The ankle is not an issue unless, if you'd like to say it's hard to run because he shattered his ankle 12 months ago, then that would mean when Brock Purdy comes out and throws an interception, you should say, well, it's not like we should expect him to throw because, he hurt the arm 6 months ago. Here's what I would like to dispel. NFL teams, the most foremost doctors in the world, do not clear these guys if they're not able to play. Now, the idea of an NFL team forcing a guy back on, I think that's less than it used to be in the 80s and 90s and whatnot. Is there pressure to play? Sure. It's inherent just because these guys don't want to lose their jobs. I get that. But in many cases, they're seeing independent doctors sometimes. These people are not sending guys out if they're still limping. Trey's fine.
He is, and he said that the ankle's not an issue.
Trey's
as
fine.
Recently as 10 days ago,
right.
I think last Friday or a week ago Friday. I think he addressed that in the last time that he had spoken with the media before yesterday after the game. The fact that the ankle is not an issue.
Yeah, he broke a bone. A bone 12 months later.
It could have been. It could have been a problem.
Sore.
It could have been a problem, but he's even said it's not sore.
I just, for me, how many football players? I mean, Dak Prescott. We've watched go through this very similar injury. 12 months later, you can play. You can play. You can run after a broken bone. Let's go to Connor in San Leandro. Hey, Connor. JD's in for Dibs. It's Willard and Dibs. How you doing, man? Thanks for calling.
Thanks, man. What's up, Mark? What's up, JD?
What's up, man?
What's cooking?
So here's my point after, listening to Mark kind of draw the lines over the last few weeks. I guess last week there was vacation, but before that too. I think where Mark kind of draws the lines is he says, well, you can't really fault them about the whole development thing, but if you fault them for trading up and for the faulty pick. And I love that. But my question to Mark, and I have a rhetorical answer to this, I guess, or it's a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
What does accountability actually look like? Because I have a proposal for what accountability actually looks like. We've had rumors since we were lucky enough to get Kyle Shanahan here from Atlanta, and I guess the rumors are he's got some kind of situation in his contract where he gets personnel control. We don't know what it is. But if he has personnel control, was he the one that traded up? Was he the one that made the pick? Was he the one who made the decision? When did he make the decision? All it comes down to is what I actually want to hear from Kyle, which is rare for him, about being this transparent, an answer to the three-word question, what actually happened?
Right.
And that's really what I'm calling about.
Okay, this is a really interesting call and some interesting questions. Connor, thank you. I will tell you that Mike Silver has insinuated within the last 24 hours that he might be getting ready to tell that story about what happened in the draft, Mac Jones, the trade, all of that stuff that we actually know. But a few questions you asked. And JD, I wonder if you see this the same way that I do. The first question was, what does accountability look like? Well, he doesn't need to run laps in his underwear or do up downs. Like, this is the NFL. Picks get messed up. Accountability comes in the form of losing your job if you do it too often. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody who really understands football and the 49ers is having a current conversation about Kyle Shanahan and his job status.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
But accountability comes in that form. It goes on the resume as a major mistake. Now, with regard to the question about kind of who's got the wand, who's in charge of this regime in terms of personnel, based on my conversations, JD, I really wonder if it matches. Kyle is the guy. Kyle's the guy.
Correct.
Okay?
Yes. So far, so good.
But that leans a little heavier on the offensive side of the ball than the defensive side of the ball when it comes to making decisions with regard to personnel.
Yes.
You agree with all that?
He will take input.
Yes.
But ultimately, if there are three people that say, I like these three players, and he really likes the fourth player, they're taking the fourth player.
Yeah. So,
for example,
in the end, if this goes the way it appears to be going, Trey's a bust, and the Niners never get anything out of him, and they use 3 years of first-round capital to get him, if you would like to know where to point your ire, yeah, it's Kyle Shanahan.
Has to be.
Now, if there's confetti flying out of the sky at a parade while you're mad, I would submit that's a you problem. But we don't know if that's the way it's going to go.
Well, and also as far as the accountability, if the 49ers had not made it to the NFC Championship game the last 2 years, the first 2 years of Trey Lance's career, I think we would be having a different conversation about where Kyle Shanahan sits.
Totally.
I mean, if they don't come back and beat the Rams in Week 18 in 2021, he's on the hot seat going into last year. In my opinion, he would have been.
You're probably right.
You better make the playoffs.
You're probably right.
And if they go 13-4, regardless of how it turned out, then he's probably fine for the next year, at least. But you can't he's made the NFC. The last 2 years, regardless of how it's all played out, the last 2 years have been successful. The last 2 years have been check marks in Kyle Shanahan's mark of hell of a coaching job.
Yeah.
The type of thing that advances you to earn more years, even though you didn't win the Super Bowl. I know that's hard for a lot of 49er fans to. You didn't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm not a championship or bust type of guy.
Kyle championship or bust is fine as a goal.
It's a goal, yes.
As a goal,
I don't think
that's
you can
great.
hold. Yeah, you don't hold people's.
But
Don't get rid of good people.
But if you make the NFC Championship game 2 years in a row and the Super Bowl 3 out of 4. Extending it out and wiping out the pandemic year in between, like Shanahan's checked the boxes recently.
Well, I always think about it this way too, and people may have differing thoughts on this. Some people believe in luck, some don't. I think in every bit of greatness, whether you're a player, you're a coach, whatever you do in your life, if you're great at it, you got some breaks. Tiger Woods one time was asked, going into the Masters one year, what do you need this week in order to win? And his first answer was, I need breaks. I need some things to go my way. Now, that is the man who many would consider the greatest golfer who has ever picked up a club. And he's telling you that when you're going up against the best, it takes breaks. So I could look at last year and actually speak about that in both directions. Did the 49ers have some bad luck? Well, they ended up with no quarterbacks. They went through 4 guys. And here came the second half of the NFC title game. That's a bad break. But conversely, they found Brock Purdy with the last pick in the draft, and the season went a certain way where he was forced into action, and they found something that may take away all of the venom based on what they did previously with Trey Lance. That's a good break. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
There are very few ways that you can overcome the lack of production that Trey Lance has had in his career.
Totally.
The 49ers have done it. And they've done it with 2 different quarterbacks, basically, that aren't Trey, which is insane in its own way to think about, but they've done it. And so that does wipe away some of the fact that it looks like Trey Lance, more and more by the day, it looks like he could be a complete miss.
So 888-957-9570. We'll keep asking, what do you think the Niners do with the Trey Lance and quarterback situation now? Now that you've seen a week of joint practice, you've seen a preseason game. Rich in Fremont is next up. Hey, Rich, you're on with Willard and JD. What are you doing?
Hey, what's up? Hey, guys, look, Mark, you had touched on something that I touched on the first time I saw Trey Lance run, and I thought, okay, you know what? This guy doesn't have any speed, okay? You think about this. The Niner fan base, when they saw what Kyle Shanahan did to get Trey Lance, they thought, okay, this is a guy that's going to bring the Patrick Mahomes style, the new brand of NFL quarterback to San Francisco. And guess what? It didn't happen, okay? Because that's not who he is, okay? He's in the pocket, and if he delivers the pass like he's supposed to, okay. But other than that, as far as him running past people and, juking people and all that's not the type of quarterback he is. So what they got to do now in order to make this work is they got to, 1, make sure that he is confident about his throws, and 2, you got to build an offensive line that can protect him. Because if you don't have one of the 2, I'm sorry, this is going to be a fight.
Well, Rich, I tell you what's interesting, I think you make a lot of good points, but then what you say at the end is what caught my attention. When you basically said, all right, so here's what they got to do. And my immediate response was, no, they don't. They don't got to do anything. This guy is tracking toward being the 3rd-string quarterback. Do you know how many plans you make for your 3rd-string quarterback? None.
It's not about developing him anymore.
No. This is not the plan anymore.
Right.
And they're trying to softly tell you as many ways as they can, and I feel like all of us have these earmuffs on. John Lynch, just yesterday, Brock Purdy's got it. He started talking about Zach Thomas, and he's like, that's a guy who, doesn't have the normal body type and doesn't have the quote-unquote skills that you would want on a great linebacker, but he had it. And so he was great, and he's a Hall of Famer. And he said, that's how we feel about Brock Purdy. And the next day, people are like, so here's what they got to do to protect Trey Lance. They don't need Trey Lance. If the plan goes correctly, will play 0 plays this year. That's the plan.
Yeah, they view it as, let's see if he can earn the backup spot, and if he can't, then they've got something to figure out.
Right.
But their pathway toward him getting another opportunity, it's not that they're out on him, but his pathway to another opportunity is Brock Purdy gets hurt.
Accidental.
Accidental. It's basically the same way that Brock Purdy got his opportunity.
Right.
It's Brock Purdy gets hurt, Trey Lance goes in, and when Trey Lance gets that opportunity, Trey Lance is awesome. Like that really is, and they win game. Like that,
right.
Whether it's the 2 or whether he's the 2 or the 3.
It has to fall to him.
Whether it's the 2 or the 3,
Yeah.
it has to come back to him.
Accidentally.
And Kyle's kind of said that, like, hey, back up, something happens. We've had a bunch of years where 3 quarterbacks have played. Like, we believe it. And I think they do believe in him as a top 3 quarterback on their roster. I know that's a sad thing to say.
Yeah.
But
I don't even know if I believe it, but yeah.
But to me, and that gets to where, this is how I look at it. I look at it as, if he's the 3, like, because you're asking the question, what do they do?
What if he's the 4?
If Darnold's wins the job, which right now he's winning the job, and Trey's got to be the 3, then I would have no problem keeping Trey Lance as the 3. And at this point, I think he has been. I have no problem with Trey Lance as the 3. If something happens to Purdy, you go to Darnold. If something happens to Darnold, your season's at that point shot anyway, right? At least so.
I'm with you.
So go develop. Then go develop Trey. Then.
Yep.